Welcome to Strategies for Turbulent Times. We're happy that you're with us. Today we have a really, I'll just say, inspiring show. We're going to talk to not only a dear friend, but someone I consider a family member, a brother, a teacher, and someone who has motivated me in my career. And we are going to have a great show today that's going to be rich. And it might be a little, as some of my tactical operators say, mind screwing, because it's going to stretch your capacity. So let me introduce Dr. Mitch Javidi. Mitch is a seasoned peak performance and human behaviorist. He brings over 35 years of hands-on experience across diverse industries such as academia, military, public safety, government, pharma, and technology. He is the mastermind behind MAGNUS OVEA. You've heard me speak of it many times. It's a general theory of human behaviors through 11 rings for enhancing interoperability and interconnectivity that makes you the best version of you. He co-founded MAGNUSWorx in collaboration with Jeff Kingsfield. He's also the founder and the driving force behind the National Command and Staff College, the Institute for Credible Leadership Development, and the Criminal Justice Commission for Credible Leadership Development. As a true entrepreneur, he's also the co-founder of Epochal Technologies, Mindset Readiness Project, and Power of Awareness. Without further ado, you'll learn much more about Mitch's background, his training at Joint Special Operations Command, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. His contributions have earned him many honorary memberships into both United States Army Special Operations Command, the National Sheriff's Association, and many honorary police commander positions. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kathy. It's a pleasure to finally be with you. Thank you for invitation. Thank you for including me in your wonderful podcast. I am a believer in it, and I've been a follower of it and promoting it. So it is my hope and prayer that I'm able to contribute to the great work you have accomplished already. So.
Oh, thank you. Well, we always like to start our show with a couple of personal questions, just to give the audience an opportunity to get to know and love you as much as we do. Tell us a little bit about who inspired you growing up and what brought you to where you are now.
Well, a little bit of background. I my first person that truly, even now from heaven, inspired me was my father. He was a sixth grade education. He was a blue collar man, but a strong family values, including my mom. And his inspiration always from day one was become more. And I think that has been a journey that has carried me in life. So he inspired me, and throughout my life, I have had many people, doing the same. Everything from you, Kathy, to my beautiful wife, Parisa, that I met 43 years ago, and we just celebrating this next month our 41st anniversary. And my two boys and my colleagues and the people got placed in my path that inspired me doing the same. How do you become more, reach out for more? So becoming more have been a journey of mine that I'm still at it. And every day I can look back and say, did I become more yesterday? And then I realize that I did, but there is more to accomplish. Kathy, I cannot hear you.
My bad, I had my mute on. I said one of the ways that I have always admired you and respected you in I'll say the over a dozen years that we've known each other and crossed paths, and then recently, in the last few years, decided to team up and go at public safety as I'll just say as partners in educating and inspire our audience that's listening to be, I'll just, I go beyond peak performance to say to be the best version, right, of you
Right.
that you can be. I want to talk a little bit about where you've come from. You've been distinguished by academia as an outstanding teacher and scholar. You've been awarded so many beautiful titles over the years. You've influenced well over 10,000 audiences with speaking engagements, not only to public safety, but to Fortune 500 companies and government. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this career from a business and consulting career, which is where we both came from.
Let me go a little bit back because I think before answering that question directly, let me talk a little bit about my journey in life. And remember, it started with that inspiration. My journey really started being deeply curious about people. Why do they do what they do? How do they make decisions? And what drives them to perform under pressure? uh, Starting with my own life, um, coming from a blue collar family, that, applying those to myself. The path has never been linear. It was like I was in a maze that there is no straight path forward to find answer to those questions. As you know, I came to this country very, very young in my teens, filled with the fear of not knowing how my life is gonna become. That experience really lit fire in me, a desire to understand the human conditions, starting with myself. From there, I pursued my education for two reasons. Number one, it was a promise I made to my family. I will work hard, I will be ethical, and I stay focused, and I will get my doctorate degree. But the second reason was because I felt that was a method of my survival by becoming successful and educated. From there, I eventually, after I graduated, I became a professor at North Carolina State University. While there, I published and perished and pursued understanding the same questions I have always been working on, and that is how humans are. Um, Built a couple of companies, sold a couple of companies, got lucky to be involved with U.S. Army Special Operations Command to train with them, to learn from them. And that also created a laboratory for me outside of the academia. And of course, consulting gives you a perspective, especially when you can travel around the world with across different industries, everything from retail to pharmaceutical. And in all of that, I found a commonality that although I did not come on from those industries, all of them had something in common, and that common was human behavior. And about 15 years ago, one of my graduate students, Chris Hoyna, who was a retired captain from Kerry Police Department, FBI NA graduate session 222, extend that invitation that what if we could also apply some of our learnings to law enforcement. So every step along the way in all of those journeys was guided with one thing and one thing only, a mission to understand people, not just in theory, but in action. What I discovered was that organizations across all sectors, military, corporate, public safety, they were all struggling not because they lacked the tools, but because they lacked practical science-based strategies for managing human dynamics under pressure. That is where my work found, or perhaps gave me a calling, that I want to be a part of it. I may not have answer to all the questions, but I have learned enough to inspire, to educate, to impact, and transcend. And in that culture, or in that environment, maybe then they can also teach me. So it became a journey that hasn't stopped. It's still being in the business of understanding human behaviors and elevate it to become more. Your audio.
As I listen to you and I hear the passion in your voice, there's such a commitment to understanding as we both share human behavior, a love for human behavior. When you think about your career and successes and failures, and you think about how you got to where you are, one of the things that we often talk about on this show are the individual struggles that we have all come through. And not only have we survived, but we have thrived, and we have, in many instances, risen above our intent because of the practices of the challenges that we have exceeded. And as our audience is listening, I'm sure you're thinking about all the times in your life that you have exceeded your own expectations. You have gone above the failure, whatever it was in the moment that you thought you were never going to get beyond. Mitch, as you talk about all of the challenges in life, you came here as a young child. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that in terms of the challenges that you were inspired as an individual to just move beyond and as you said, educate yourself and be more.
I have to be honest, coming to America and not speaking a language and trying to survive, learn the language, learn new culture, learn new habits, and deal with the stereotypes and etc. Was not easy, but we have learned what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So for a while, all those stresses was getting to me, but the turning point came when I was back in the 89, 90. I was working with the Delta Force operator and realized how often performance breaks down, not from lack of training, but from unseen stress, lack of emotional resilience, or poor team dynamics. I wanted to get underneath the surface to the invisible forces influencing his decision, because his answers to the questions would actually help me. That led me into studying early on in the field of neurobiology, performance psychology, and of course, your work, Kathy, emotional intelligence, to eventually craft a theory for myself first, for him second, and then the operators in the military that we call Magnus Ovea. And that started with the initial curiosity of what makes us kick. Sure, of course, I have had my own stresses, and my own success story was really, really bringing it all together. By bringing it all together, to have a moment in my life to see, to start putting the pieces uh, together by launching that Magnus Ovea theory. It taught me through that science that if you do not tailor your behaviors and human understanding and the culture that you are in, it would not work. So it was a journey of researching, not knowing even sometimes what I was looking for, and finding some things in my own human behavior that I was not even unaware of, that innately were motivating me, inspiring me, but I didn't know the science until I had to dig in and really, really understand that I am taking my own brain for granted because I don't know the mechanics of the actions of it. I do not know the relationship between my cognitive and my emotional side, and how the attunement and interlinking relationship with those would help me. So I had to take the time, like learning to exercise, like learning a new language. Not that I wanted to become a neuro biologist or a neuroscientist, but understand enough that I understand, my own mechanics of actions of my human conduct. And I think that started to be a turning point for me.
I'm very excited to talk to you about preparing for the unknown and understanding your own human behavior to, as we say, get left of bang. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what does left and right of bang really mean, and how can we better prepare ourselves for the inevitable. We'll be right back. You're listening to Strategies for Turbulent Times. Welcome back. We're talking to Dr. Mitch Javidi, a distinguished co-founder of many, many influential institutions and organizations, from the National Command and Staff College to NTOA's Command College to so many different special operations programs. When we went to break, Mitch, we were talking about the concept of left and right of bang and how we can better prepare ourselves for the inevitable. And I'm sure you have some insightful information there that you can share with our audience.
Oh, absolutely. So, at the lowest level of abstraction, it is a difference between reactive versus proactive. So, let me explain. In this case, when you are right of bang and you were not prepared, you are reacting. If you are the left of bang, then you are preparing, you are training for every condition. Like in military and law enforcement, we talk about ODO loop, how you observe, orient, decide, and act. If you are prepared with a lot of training, then when you are in the ODO loop, your orientation is gonna go much faster, and you can, observe it, orient yourself, and react, and then go through the cycle. So left of bang refers to everything that happens before a critical incident or any situation. Our preparation, our awareness, our intuition, and early warning signs and preparing for it would prepare us for that bang or event or situation happen. Right of bangs is the aftermath, is the response, recovery, and resilience. Now, I want to explain what I mean by resilience. In fact, is more than, resilience is what we call elasticity. I could be resilient, means how much I can take on, but if I have not well trained and prepared, my recovery actually is going to be less. But if I have built both resilience and elasticity through preparation, my recovery will be faster. So with that, the true readiness and true elevation of when we say great to Magnus, when great becomes more, the Magnus is always training left up bank, developing insight and elasticity to be prepared for that incident. The better we recognize stress, fatigue, cognitive biases, emotional drift, the way we learn how to manage the cortisol in our body, to learn to reverse it to a calmer hormones like oxytocin and vasopressin, we are preparing left of the bank. And when the bank happens, regardless of how extreme it is, our recovery is going to be much more faster.
As you look at the kinds of training that's out there that you and I have both recently been delivering in the market, leading edge Magnus performance training, whether it's the MAPS program that you've recently introduced or our beautiful Magnus coach certification for first responders, any of the Magnus Ovea based initiatives, they're elevating performance through the 11 rings of peak performance. Can you talk a little bit about that theory and how you're putting it into action to prepare for left to bang and helping those across law enforcement, across the special operations organizations truly embrace this left of bang in reality?
Well, let me give you a metaphor for the 11 rings first. Let's say you taking your granddaughter to a park, and there is a merry-go-round. And let's say your granddaughter is 5 year old, she's anxious to say, Grandma, Grandma, put me on that merry-go-round. And you say, wait, wait, wait. Why are you waiting? You are watching the mechanical action of that merry-go-round. If the horses are not balanced, if that merry-go-round is not balanced, you are not gonna put your granddaughter on that. So the same thing applies to the science of 11 rings. According to one of my great mentors that I've been following for years, Dr. Daniel Siegel, he makes a reference to the medial prefrontal cortex of the brain that needs to meet certain function that leads to high performance, attunement, and well-being. So 11 rings that I introduced in the theory of human behavior was heavily influenced not only by the work of Dr. Daniel Siegel, but Albert Bandura, who was a good mentor of mine. I met with him several times during my graduate studies and beyond, learn from him. And also Vurun's taxonomy on expectancy theory of leadership or motivation. So you have to learn to inspire. You have to realize there is a connection between the mind and emotions. And how do the 11 rings apply? The 11 rings, they are in this order, and there is an interconnectivity and interoperability between all those 11 rings. Ring number 1, relationship development. Ring number 2, family dynamics. Ring number 3, a spiritual, a spiritual mind or a spiritual being, mental toughness, emotional factors, physical optimization and physical health, resilience, and then follows by financial stability, follows by occupational fulfillment. Are you even happy with what you do with work, leadership, and then ultimately that leads to the social connectivity. So when those rings, you build capacity in them, they create the interconnectivity and interoperability between them all. And together, they create 3 major rings that we refer to: magnanimity, magnicity, and magnetship. And very, very quickly, by magnanimity, we mean the practice of putting the needs and growth of others above all personal gain, focusing on serving those you lead with humanity, empathy, and commitment to their well-being. This type of leadership emphasizes sacrifice that is commonly understood by first responders, including our military. It promotes trust and the willingness to help others achieve their fulfillment potential. Magnicity, coming as an interconnecting second ring, is the practice of developing and strengthening the capacity to perform at the highest level across every aspects of life and career. The four key domains of magnicity: emotional factors, mental toughness, physical health, and resilience factors, collectively contribute to our performance, or as a leader, our overall ability to thrive in high pressure situations and inspire others through actions and mindset. And finally, when those two rings are feeding the overall medial prefrontal cortex, the magnetship, as the last big domain or big circle, is the practice that it focuses on essential components of leadership that ensures effectiveness, resilience, elasticity, and long-term success. It is made of three critical factors: leadership capacity, financial stability, and occupational fulfillment. Together, these elements allow a leader to guide with purpose, maintain focus, and inspire trust and growth within their team. So when you put those three macro rings together with 11 rings underneath it, together they create what I call a dance of attunement, being in tune with yourself and with those you interact and with those you serve. It is a way for me as a map to move my good to great and then great to Magnus.
That's very powerful. Let me just help the audience a little bit. So again, is there an order for magnusship or magnanimity or magnicity?
Yeah, there is an order. The foundation is magnanimity. If you are not good at social connectivity, relationship development, family dynamics, and spiritual being, you are gonna struggle. So those four have to always go first. Then you build on top of it. If you are a three-story building, now magnicity comes second. You need to focus on your mental toughness, emotional factors, physical health optimization, and resilience. And the top of the pyramid are the last three: financial stability, leadership, and then of course occupational fulfillment. So there is a pyramid to it, there is a science behind it, and that's what we call the map. It's basically mastering your magnanimity, attaining your magnicity, and performing, or you're practicing your magnusship.
I'm absolutely blown away by the artfulness with which you connect these very well identified wellness factors. Now, you and I know my passion is in that resilience, emotional fitness, and relationship ring, right? And I think that's where you and I have so much passion for building leaders, as you call them, being able to practice that magnusship. Can you talk a little bit about how these things really prepare an individual
Let's
for
get
challenges?
Yeah, let me give you one example. Let's just say we're going to apply those. in the context of SWAT operation or a special.
Beautiful, beautiful.
One recent example that I can share involved the SWAT team that had experienced high turnover and burnout because they were always deployed. We applied the Magnus model, which includes the 3 super rings, 11 rings, and another set of 100, 200 skills and dynamic trends with that group. And in the model, first, what we wanted to do, we wanted to measure first, act second by giving them recommendation, and third, let them practice. Guess which one of those measurement led a foundation into their practices or their challenges was emotional factors and emotional fatigue, right? Uh, which impacted their team cohesion and operational alignment that at times mistakes was even getting made. And then they would take all those stresses home and they would affect them at home. Within 90 days, planning, assessing, acting by giving us a series of solution daily practices, 2 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day, through our Magnus Leader app, they were learning and learning to see how they can overcome those challenges. So the key was not tactical training, it was addressing the invisible human system through the 11 rings and reestablishing personal and collective agency, as Albert Bandura describing it. So it's been a great exercise. The team is now more motivated. More people are actually wanting to be SWAT because those who are in it, rather than they dropping out or withdrawing, they have got remotivated. So, like you said, without the top first floor magnanimity that includes some of your own work, family dynamic relationship, or a spiritual being, and then without emotional intelligence or emotional well-being or emotional brilliance, as you call it, you cannot do the rest.
Yeah, as you're speaking, Mitch, it shows us and our audience the power of understanding self, recognizing your own emotional fitness, which has so many domains. And we have been working together now for over a decade and feeding each other's minds, thank the Lord, and then serving this beautiful community that's listening in today. One of the things that I'm really excited about, and I know you get very excited about, is when we travel to these major conferences and we deliver our programs. I have a half-a-day program coming up next week at the TAC Ops conference that I go to annually for the last decade in the Syracuse, New York area. And we have over 65 people in that class. And, it's going to be a beautiful example that you just shared, that I can relay to them, because one of the things that we do know about our special operations communities, whether they be military or paramilitary, is until they are introduced to themselves at various levels, right? And that's what the 11 rings does. It introduces an individual to themselves at various levels so they can check in on their own strengths and recognize that in every one of us, if we can understand ourselves, as Sun Tzu said, the enemy has no chance. They have no possibility of success. Because if we know ourselves, we will be able to prepare left of bang to get right of bang much more quickly, much more effectively, and be able to lead through that Magnusship and be successful. One of the things that you said that really inspires me is also knowing how our brain works. And what we do in our Magnus coach certification for first responders is we spend a lot of time with brain models so that special operators get to look inside their head in their brain with a model, and we can show them where this medial prefrontal cortex is, which is so important because it's also where creativity is. And one of the things that you talked about, which is so important, is recognizing your mental toughness. Well, where does your mental toughness come from, right? It comes from your capacity to thrive through resilience. So what I want you to think about a little bit as we go to break here is, you've applied these theories across various sectors and industry. You've shared a beautiful example of how it impacts law enforcement. Tell us a little bit about some of the work that you've been doing on well-being, and a little bit about how these Magnus Leader apps and other apps that you have been intimately involved in creating can change the face of public safety. We'll be right back. Don't go away. You're listening to Strategies for Turbulent Times. Welcome back to a very mind-screwing, mind-stretching show today. I'm sure many of you who are listening have already felt stretched. And I want you to know that there'll be a link in the episode for today's show to much of Dr. Javidi's work. You can access his book, The 11 Rings, Magnus Ovea. You can also take a look at his book, Deliberate Leadership, Achieving Success Through Personal Styles. You can look at many of the applications that he has, and so you'll be able to find them all. You can also go to commandcollege.org and see where Mitch will be appearing in many organizations across the US. And actually, you did a little bit of a stint over in London this winter. You've talked about Magnusship as the pinnacle based on magnanimity and on magnicity and the 11 rings. Tell us a little bit about the technology that you have masterminded with others like Jeff Kingsfield, a dear brother of ours, and how you're showing people to use wellness apps in a different way, especially in high up-tempo teams.
When you are in a stressful environment and you're working, in this case, tactical operations, SWAT operations, military, first responders, my own spouse, when stress is high, but they have to be a top-notch performers, they remind me of being an athlete. I was a soccer player, and I played what we call football or soccer. And if a coach comes to a player and says, "How are you doing?" What do you think I'm gonna say? "I'm doing good." "Are you fine?" "I am fine." "Are you ready to play?" "Yes, I'm ready to play," and I play. And there were days that I played well, and there are days that I didn't play well. And he asked me what happened. I said, "Well, we'll win the next one." Well, unfortunately, in the business of TAC ops or special operations, military, first responders, or high intensity, you cannot say we win the next one. All right. So you must be always in full attunement with yourself first, in full mental, emotional state with yourself first, to be able to keep that performance, because you don't play only for 4 or 5 days or 4 or 5 years. You play for your entire career. You are never retired until you finally retire. You do not go on, you cannot say, I was deployed, but now I'm not deployed, because you are always deployed. So with that said, since we talked about the rite of bank, because in those high stress environments, the culture have always been set in a following way. They'll take care of themselves. Let's focus on the task. Then a lot of people picked up a lot of injuries, like a football player or a soccer player, or they don't want to just talk about it. So the minute you tell them wellness, they say, no, thank you, I'm not good. They are going to push back. They are not going to be receiving it. So my angle to all of those, as we practiced it and we tested it with the military and other industries, that law enforcement or public safety is not any different. People naturally gonna say, no, thank you. So rather than talking about wellness and well-being, why not focus on teaching what happens in the mechanics of the brain and the emotions about them wanting to become more? So when I show them the 11 rings on a screen and I say, take a look at those rings, is there any of those rings that you have an interest to raise the bar for yourself? Guess what happens, Kathy? Nearly everybody raise their hand. They say, yes, I want to learn any of those, one of them, or in most cases, all of them, to become more, because I see the value. And Daniel Siegel would argue that having medial prefrontal cortex attunement to meet the 9 function that it requires is actually a definition for wellness. So when I can manage the hormones in my body, when I can modulate my fears, when I can be an effective communicator, when I can manage my intuition, when I can manage my knowing myself, and etc., when I become good at those with the help of the 11 rings, then I am in tune, then I am well. So with that, we decided years back that we are going to create a technology-enabled solutions where they don't have to necessarily go to 1 day class, 2 day class, or 13 weeks away. They can use technology to measure, to act through the knowledge we give them, and then they can practice it 2 minutes a day. And the results have been just absolutely dynamic and powerful. So the word MAGNUSWorx that I came up with was, where can I go to move my grade to Magnus? Well, you need a laboratory. It's kind of like, where do I go exercise? I go to the gym. So works is a place that I go work on me. And as I work on me, I can measure myself. I can learn new actions and behaviors on a repeated basis over time. I can practice it. Then I will do better, high perform, and be in good health mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually.
You know, Mitch, as you're speaking, for those of you who are listening, you can find some of these publications on this work in Police Chief Magazine and at Tactical Edge. There's a lot here, Mitch. I just want to pause for a second. You and I both know that there are generational differences that are going on inside this expansive law enforcement and public safety community. And we've had a huge influx of young people who are very, very engaged by these handheld applications. And I think you meet the needs of this changing landscape by enabling them to look for information in the moment when it's appropriate. And I think that's really a game changer in this public safety environment. Can you talk a little bit about that and the experts that you have that are delivering these video clips that are so insightful, but yet so concise that it allows anybody to get real-time help at their fingertips?
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, don't forget about our purpose. Like from day one, I was inspired to understand human behavior. And what makes us very, very unique at our college and with this program, we actually believe that the first responders need a partner that is not in it for the cash, right? And so we have a very philanthropic view because we look at the first responders as the sun and the communities they serve as the earth. The sun never looks down at the earth and says, you owe me, right? So the sun is always self-sacrificing. And with those sacrifices come stresses. So we see our role as a complement to the sun by saying that who takes care of you? Will you let us to work with you? And I think regardless of generation, they spend time, they get to know us and they trust us and they say, okay, now we need help. Clearly, the new generations are, of course, different than an old timer like myself. And they are part of that technology development. They don't remember the days there was no computers, etc. From early days, they get exposed to the applications and social medias, etc. But what makes that very, very beautiful, because it makes it cost effective and also resource-wise effective with a level of acceptance. If I can learn 2 minutes new tactic or new skills that I can practice it over time, then I become better. All football players watch films. They watch films of the best football players. We call it social learning theory by Albert Bandura to become better. So that habit building that I can assess myself, I can learn a new action and I can monitor myself and I can make adjustment is absolutely needed. And on top of that, our faculty and subject matter experts are always looking and developing new content. Our technology is not based a content we wrote 20 years ago and we are still trying to make money out of it. You are a subject matter expert. You're giving us content on relationship development, family, mental toughness, and resilience. Our subject matter expert, Tiffany Andreas, she's a mindfulness coach that she's certified in it. She provides us a lot of content. Like yourself, as you are the queen of emotional intelligence, we also have the doc, the call sign Shauna Duck Springer. She is our clinical psychologist advisor. She writes anything from content about suicide prevention or any other topic that falls in all of those rings. Our good friend, our Dr. Paul Zak, who is behind the emergence, that he has developed technology solutions and content, and the list goes long. But I will tell you, this business and this solution is not about us. It's actually not only a partnership with our faculty, but our partnership with our clients that we serve, because they are also the center of excellence for some of the knowledge that they have, experiences that they have, and our app will enable them to upload their content and disseminate it. So we are working in this ecosystem that we are trying to come together. Why did military brought you in? Why did military brought me in? Because military knows insiders don't have all the answers. When you bring an inside change agents and an outside change agents together, great things happen.
Mitch, this has been such an inspirational and engaging show today. When you look at the future and you look at how we're enhancing performance and how important well-being is, what would you suggest as one thing our listeners can do to prepare for the unknown?
I'll put it in 4 words. Embrace readiness, not perfection. By that I mean the unknown will always be there, but the prepared mind is agile, grounded, and resilient. I would say invest in your well being before it is tested. Develop your emotional elasticity, strengthen your 11 rings, and do remember your ability to navigate uncertainty is not a product of your tools, it is a product of your mindset, your habits, your willingness to lead yourself first. That is the real essence of Magnus living, with the intention to always elevating our great to become more. And therefore, if you are on that journey, will give you the call sign Magnus.
Absolutely stunning. I would not have expected any less from you. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Mitch Javidi, for sharing all of your wealth of knowledge, your sincerity for serving, and just for being such a truly dedicated soul to our audience who we love. And we love you for all you provide for us. So thanks for being with us today. Thank you to our audience. And remember, we love you. We're always here for you. Go to commandcollege.org to learn more about Dr. Mitch Javidi. We'll see you next time